You know that feeling? When you've aced every English test, you can write a perfect email, but the moment a native speaker starts talking, it's like they've suddenly switched to a secret code. The words blur together, sounds disappear, and you're left with a polite smile, nodding while your brain is screaming, "What on earth did they just say?" If that's you, you're not alone. And you've come to the right place. Welcome to Advanced English Listening Practice, Real-Life Conversations. I'm your host, and this isn't your typical English lesson. We're not going to practice slow, perfect, textbook English. No. We're going to dive headfirst into the messy, fast, and wonderfully authentic world of how people actually speak. This is your training ground to go from understanding the words to understanding the music. Let's talk about the biggest myth in language learning, the idea that if you just learn more vocabulary and grammar, you'll automatically understand spoken English. The truth is, spoken language is a completely different beast. It's full of shortcuts, contractions, and sounds that change based on what comes next. Linguists call this phenomenon connected speech. I like to call it the secret wiring of the language. And once you learn to hear it, you can't unhear it. It's the key that unlocks everything. Today, we're focusing on one of the most common, and often most confusing, aspects of connected speech, elision. Elision is simply the disappearance of a sound. It happens all the time for efficiency. Our mouths are lazy, they want to take the easiest path. So, certain sounds, particularly tend when they're sandwiched between two other consonant sounds, often vanish. I'll give you a classic example. Take the phrase "I don't know." Say it slowly. I don't know. You can hear the "t" clearly, right? Now, say it quickly, as you would in a normal conversation. I don't know. What happens? For most native speakers, that sound practically disappears. It becomes "I don't know." Or even further, "I dunno." The "t" has been elided. It's gone. This isn't a mistake. It's not sloppy speech. This is standard, everyday English. If you're listening for a perfect, crisped in every word, you're going to miss a huge part of the conversation. Your brain needs to be trained to expect the absence of sound. So, let's practice. I'm going to say 3 phrases. First, I'll say them slowly and clearly, like a textbook. Then, I'll say them at natural speed, with elision. I want you to listen for the difference. Ready? Phrase 1, most people. Slowly, most people. Naturally, most people. Did you hear it? The "t" in most is almost silent because the next word, people, starts with a consonant sound p. Phrase 2, handbag. Slowly, handbag. Naturally, handbag. The "d" vanishes between the "n" and the "b". Phrase 3, you and me. Slowly, you and me. Naturally, you and me. The "d" is elided. Hearing this is the first step. In our next segment, we'll deconstruct a real conversation clip, and I'll show you exactly how to train your ears to catch these disappearing acts. Stay with me. So, how did you go with those elision examples? Could you hear the sounds disappearing? If it still feels a bit tricky, don't worry. That's exactly why we're here. Remember, we're rewiring your listening brain, and that takes consistent practice. Now, let's move from isolated phrases into the wild, into a real, unscripted conversation. I've got a clip from a chat between two friends, Sarah and Mark. They're discussing their plans for the weekend. Listen carefully to this short exchange first. I'll play it at full speed. So, what are you up to this weekend? I was thinking we could maybe check out that new market down by the river, if you're not too busy. Okay, sounded fast, right? Let's break it down word by word, but with our new ears focused on elision. The first thing I want you to notice is the phrase check out that new market. Now, say check out slowly. You hear the k and the t clearly. But in natural speech, when check is followed by out, which begins with a vowel sound, something different happens. The k sound links smoothly to the au sound, but more importantly, listen to out that. Out ends with ate and that begins with a sound. In rapid speech, that tin out often becomes a glottal stop or even disappears slightly because it's between two sounds. It doesn't vanish completely, but it's softened, making out that sound almost like OU that. But the golden example here is mark it down. Let's isolate that. Mark it ends with ate sound, and down begins with ate sound. Both are consonants. This is a prime environment for elision. In the clip, Sarah doesn't say mark it down with a crisped. She says mark down. The t is elided. It's gone. This is efficient speech. Her mouth moves from the k sound in mark it directly to the din down without releasing the t. This is incredibly common. Think of phrases like next door becoming next door or left turn sounding like left turn. Your brain needs to learn to predict this. When you see a word ending in toward followed by a word starting with a consonant, anticipate that the sound might be missing. Don't wait to hear it, you'll be waiting forever. Instead, focus on the context. The word market is clear from the sentence, and down follows logically. This is active listening. You're not just a passive receiver of sounds, you're a detective, using context to fill in the gaps that connected speech creates. Now, your training tip for today, shadowing. Find a short clip from a movie, TV show, or podcast. Listen to one sentence at a time. Then, try to repeat it exactly as you hear it, mimicking the rhythm, the speed, and especially the missing sounds. If they say most people, you say most people. This forces your brain and your mouth to accept these changes as normal. It's powerful. In the next part, we'll tackle another hidden rule of fast speech, assimilation. It's when sounds change to become more like their neighbors. You won't want to miss it. I hope you've been playing with that shadowing technique I mentioned. It's a game changer, isn't it? Suddenly, you start to feel the rhythm of the language in your own voice. Now, let's unlock another layer of the secret code, assimilation. If elision is about sounds disappearing, assimilation is about sounds changing. They transform to become more like their neighbors, making the speech flow smoother and faster. It's like linguistic peer pressure, sounds influence each other to fit in. Think about it this way. When you're walking in a crowd, you might slightly adjust your path to avoid bumping into people. Sounds do the same thing in a stream of speech. Your mouth anticipates the next sound and adjusts the current one to make the transition easier. This happens unconsciously for native speakers, but for learners, it can be a major source of confusion. You might hear a word that sounds familiar but slightly off, and that's often assimilation at work. One of the most common types of assimilation involves place of articulation. That's a fancy term for where in your mouth you make a sound. For example, let's take the n sound. Normally, it's made with the tongue tip against the alveolar ridge, just behind your teeth. But what happens when is followed by a sound made with the lips, like porb? Then often assimilates tim, because m is also a bilabial sound. Your tongue prepares for the bilabial sound by making the preceding sound bilabial too. I'll give you a classic example. The phrase 10 people. Say it slowly, 10 people. You hear them clearly. Now, say it quickly, as you would in natural conversation. 10 people often becomes 10 people. Then changes tim before the p. It's not 10 anymore, it's 10. This isn't a mistake, it's standard pronunciation. Another example is green book. It can easily sound like green book because then assimilates tim before the bilabial b. Let's listen to a real clip. Remember Sarah and Mark? Here's another snippet from their conversation. Audio clip. I think we can probably meet at the station around 5:10, if that works for you. Did you catch it? Listen to 10 past. In fast speech, 10 past often sounds like 10 past. Then in 10 assimilates tim because it's followed by p. It's a subtle change, but if you're listening for a clear n, you might miss it. Your brain needs to learn that 10 in this context means 10. Here's your practice tip. Take a common phrase like I can go or in case. Say them slowly, then quickly. Notice how I can go might sound like I'd song go, where then assimilates to the sound before the g. This is called velar assimilation. Practice with a list. 1 cup, 7 boys, can go. Record yourself and compare. Training your ear to recognize these patterns is crucial for comprehension. In the next part, we'll explore how vowels change in unstressed syllables, the key to understanding the rhythm of English. Don't go away. Now that we've explored how consonants assimilate and elide, let's dive into an equally crucial aspect that governs the rhythm of English, vowel reduction. This is where the true music of the language lives. If you've ever wondered why native speakers seem to swallow certain syllables or why words sound completely different in conversation than they do in isolation, vowel reduction is the key. Essentially, in unstressed syllables, vowels tend to weaken and centralize to a neutral sound called the schwa, represented by the symbol a. This little sound is the most common vowel in English, and mastering it is non-negotiable for advanced listening. Think about the word photograph. The stress is on the first syllable, photograph. The first syllable has a clear O sound. But now, consider photography. The stress moves to the second syllable, photography. What happens to the first syllable? It becomes unstressed, and the vowel reduces to a schwa photography. The O which was O in photograph becomes a quick, neutral A in photography. This isn't random, it's a systematic pattern that affects countless words. Your brain needs to stop expecting every vowel to be pronounced fully and instead learn to anticipate this reduction. This phenomenon is everywhere in function words, words like articles, prepositions, and pronouns that carry grammatical meaning but often lack stress in a sentence. For example, the word a is almost always pronounced as a schwa. The word that can be the before a consonant sound. But let's look at a more complex example in a real context. Listen to this clip from a podcast I was on recently. Audio clip. I was talking to a colleague about the project, and we decided that it might be better to postpone the meeting until next week. Did you hear how the vowel into sounded like a quick to rather than a clear to? That's because to is unstressed in this context. Similarly, a is a, and is reduced to and or even in. the word that is often reduced to that when it's a conjunction. Your listening strategy must shift from identifying every word perfectly to grasping the overall rhythm, where stressed syllables carry the meaning and unstressed syllables are quick and neutral. This is why transcription exercises are so valuable. Take a short audio clip and try to write down exactly what you hear, paying special attention to these weak forms. You'll be amazed at how many schwas you discover. It also explains why you might not recognize a word you know perfectly well. It's hiding in a reduced form. Practice by listing common words that reduce, for becomes for, of becomes of, you can be in rapid speech. Say sentences like what are you doing? Naturally, it often flows as what are you doing, with multiple reductions. Understanding vowel reduction is the gateway to perceiving English stress timing, where the time between stressed syllables is roughly equal, giving the language its characteristic rhythm. In our next segment, we'll examine how these reduced forms combine with linking to create the seamless flow of native speech. Keep listening. So, we've seen how vowels and unstressed syllables weaken to that neutral schwa sound, making words like to and for almost disappear into the background. But this reduction isn't happening in isolation, it's part of a larger system that makes English flow like a river rather than a series of isolated drops. This brings us to the natural partner of reduction, linking. Linking is the glue that connects words together, smoothing out the edges between them. When one word ends with a consonant sound and the next begins with a vowel sound, they often link together as if they were a single word. This is a fundamental reason why spoken English can sound like a continuous stream rather than separate blocks. Think of it as a phonetic courtesy, a way for speakers to avoid awkward pauses and maintain rhythm. For example, the phrase an apple is rarely pronounced an apple. Instead, it flows as an apple. Then sound at the end of an attaches itself to the beginning of apple. This happens constantly in everyday speech. Let's take a common phrase, I need it. When said slowly, it's clear. But at natural speed, it often becomes I need it, with the sound linking to the vowel in it. This linking can make it challenging to distinguish word boundaries, which is why you might hear I need it as one blurry word. But linking isn't just about consonants moving to vowels. There are several types. Another common one is when a word ends with a vowel sound and the next word begins with a vowel sound. In this case, speakers often insert a gentle or sound to bridge the gap. For instance, go out might sound like go out, where a slight sound appears between go and out because your lips round for the O sound. Similarly, I am can become I am, with a sound gliding between the two vowels. Let's go back to our real-life conversation between Sarah and Mark. I'll play a clip we haven't analyzed yet. Audio clip, I actually ended up working late on Friday, so I'm really looking forward to a relaxing weekend. Listen carefully to the phrase looking forward to. In careful speech, it's 3 distinct words. But in this clip, it's linked together, looking forward to. The at the end of looking connects to the fin forward, but more importantly, the at the end of forward links to the vowel into, which itself is reduced to a. So, it might sound like lookin' forward a. This linking, combined with reduction, creates the smooth flow you hear. Your ear training here involves learning to anticipate these links. Instead of listening for spaces between words, listen for the continuous sound stream. A practical exercise is to use finger tracing. As you listen to a sentence, trace a continuous line in the air with your finger, lifting it only when you hear a noticeable pause or stress. This physical action can help retrain your brain to perceive connected speech rather than isolated words. It's a simple but powerful way to build rhythm recognition. In the next part, we'll combine all these elements, elision, assimilation, reduction, and linking, to tackle the most challenging aspect of all, understanding different accents and dialects. It's where the real fun begins. All those elements we've mastered, elision, assimilation, reduction, and linking, are the foundation, but they manifest differently depending on who is speaking. That's because English isn't a monolith, it's a tapestry of accents and dialects, each with its own unique melody and rules. This is often the final frontier for advanced listeners, moving beyond the familiar cadence of one accent to comfortably understand others. If you've ever felt thrown by a Scottish accent after tuning your ear to American English, or struggled to follow a fast-paced Australian speaker, you know exactly what I mean. But here's the secret: instead of seeing accents as obstacles, view them as variations on a theme. Your goal isn't to learn every accent from scratch, but to develop a flexible ear that can adapt to these variations by recognizing patterns. The core of accent differences lies in vowel shifts, consonant changes, and intonation patterns. For instance, the same word can sound vastly different. Take the word bath. In most American accents, it has a flat A sound, like in cat. But in many British accents, it's pronounced with a broader A sound, like in father. This isn't random, it's part of a systematic pattern affecting many words. Similarly, their sound is pronounced in most American accents at the end of words like car or better, but it's often dropped in British received pronunciation, making car sound like ch. These differences can be mapped and learned. But accents aren't just about individual sounds, they're about rhythm and music. An Irish accent might have a lyrical, rising intonation, while a New York accent might have a more nasal quality and distinct vowel sounds. The key to comprehension is exposure and active listening. Don't avoid accents you find challenging, seek them out. Start with media that offers clear examples. Watch a British drama like The Crown 4RP or Derry Girls for an Irish accent. Listen to podcasts from different regions. The goal isn't to imitate but to familiarize your ear with the patterns. When you listen, pay attention to the melody first. Where does the stress fall in sentences? How does the pitch rise and fall? Often, the intonation pattern carries more meaning than the individual words themselves. Then, focus on the most frequent words and how they're pronounced in that accent. For example, in some Australian accents, the word today might sound like today due to a vowel shift. Once you identify that pattern, you'll start hearing it in other words. Here's a practical exercise: take a short clip from a movie or show with a target accent. Listen to it once without subtitles, just absorbing the sound. Then, listen again with subtitles to connect the sounds to the words. Finally, listen a third time without subtitles, focusing on how the accent modifies the sounds you know. This three-step process trains your brain to decode accent-specific variations. Remember, it's about pattern recognition, not memorization. Your ear will gradually become more adept at filtering out the accent and focusing on the message. In our next segment, we'll put it all together by analyzing a full conversation with multiple speakers from different backgrounds, showing you how to switch gears in real time. Stay tuned. Now that we've laid the groundwork for understanding accent variations, it's time to put your skills to the ultimate test, decoding a real-life conversation with multiple speakers from different backgrounds. This is where active listening becomes a dynamic dance, requiring you to switch gears rapidly as each person speaks. I've curated a clip from an international podcast discussion featuring 3 participants: Anna from London, David from New York, and Chloe from Sydney. They're debating the future of remote work. As you listen, I want you to pay attention not just to what they say, but how they say it. Notice the distinct rhythm, vowel sounds, and pacing of each speaker. Let's play the clip first in its entirety. Audio clip: Anna, I genuinely believe that the flexibility offered by remote work is unparalleled, though it does require a certain level of discipline. David, yeah, I get that, but let's be real, the collaboration aspect suffers. You can't replicate those hallway conversations. Chloe, oh, I dunno, David. With the right tools, I think we can adapt. It's about intentional communication, innit? Okay, let's break this down speaker by speaker. First, Anna's British RP accent. Did you hear how she pronounced flexibility? The vowel in the first syllable is a clearer rather than the American I that might sound like flexibility. Also, notice the non-rhotic nature of her speech. Offer sounds like offer with no final r, and collaboration has a subtle sound. Her pacing is measured, with crisp consonants, but even she uses reduction. Certain level becomes certain level with the in certain almost disappearing. Now, David's New York accent. He says yeah, I get that with a very flat in that, almost like yeah, I get dat. His pronunciation of real has a distinctive quality, and hallway might have a slightly nasal tone. But most importantly, listen for the linking and elision. Let's be real is spoken quickly, with let's linking to be, and the tin let's might be a glottal stop. He also uses assimilation. Suffers might have a softened r due to the following sound. Chloe's Australian accent offers another layer. I dunno is a classic example of reduction and elision we discussed earlier. Her vowel in tools is a giveaway. It's pronounced with a fronted / sound, different from both American and British versions. The word adapt has a flatter a than in RP. And she ends with in it, a common tag question in Australian and British English, which is heavily reduced from isn't it. The key takeaway here is that your brain needs to be flexible. Instead of panicking when you hear an unfamiliar accent, focus on the context and the stressed keywords. For instance, in Chloe's line, even if in it throws you off, the words intentional communication carry the core meaning. Practice by listening to multicultural panels or podcasts like BBC World Service or The Atlantic that feature diverse voices. Try transcribing short segments, noting accent-specific variations. This trains your ear to adapt in real time. Remember, comprehension isn't about catching every sound perfectly, it's about grasping the essence through the noise. In our final segment, we'll discuss how to maintain and advance your listening skills through consistent, enjoyable practice strategies that fit into your daily life. You've come this far, don't stop now. You've now equipped yourself with the tools to decode connected speech and navigate the rich diversity of English accents. But knowledge alone isn't power, it's the consistent application of that knowledge that leads to real, lasting improvement. The question I hear most often is, how do I make this a sustainable part of my life without burning out? The answer lies in shifting your mindset from practice being a chore to it being a source of enjoyment and curiosity. The most effective listening practice is the one you actually look forward to doing. Incorporate listening into activities you already enjoy. Love films? Instead of relying solely on subtitles, try this two-step approach. First, watch a scene with subtitles to understand the plot and dialogue. Then, rewatch the same scene without subtitles, focusing purely on the sounds, the rhythm, the linking, the reductions. You'll be amazed at how much more you catch the second time, and because it's a scene you're engaged with, it feels less like study and more like discovery. The same goes for podcasts or audiobooks on topics you're passionate about, from history to true crime to comedy. Your brain learns best when it's relaxed and interested. Consistency is far more important than duration. Aim for 15 to 20 minutes of focused listening practice each day rather than a 2-hour marathon once a week. This daily exposure keeps your ear tuned to the rhythm of the language and reinforces the neural pathways we've been building. Think of it like physical exercise. Short, regular workouts are more beneficial than sporadic, intense sessions. Use dead time effectively. Listen to an English podcast during your commute, while cooking, or on a walk. This passive exposure, when combined with active sessions, creates a powerful immersion effect. But passive listening isn't enough. You need to engage actively. Here's a simple but powerful technique, the 1-minute challenge. Find a short audio clip, a news report, a podcast intro, a movie monologue. Listen to it once without any help. Then, transcribe everything you can hear. Play it back sentence by sentence, filling in the gaps. Now, compare your transcription to the actual script or subtitles. This exercise forces you to confront exactly what you miss, be it reductions, linking, or unfamiliar vocabulary. It's humbling but incredibly effective for identifying your personal listening blind spots. But understanding individual accents in a controlled conversation is one thing. What happens when the conversation turns chaotic? When people talk over each other, use slang, or throw in cultural references that aren't in any textbook? This is the reality of informal group settings, think dinner parties, team meetings, or social media videos, and it's where your listening skills are truly tested. The key here isn't just about parsing sounds, it's about learning to listen for gist and context when perfect comprehension isn't possible. In fact, native speakers don't catch every word in a lively debate either. They rely on contextual clues, tone, and their knowledge of the speakers to fill in the blanks. Your goal should be to develop that same intuitive grasp. Let's talk about a specific challenge: overlapping speech. When 2 or more people speak simultaneously, it can feel like an auditory jigsaw puzzle. The trick is to avoid trying to understand both streams at once. Instead, focus on the primary speaker or the loudest voice, and use the reactions of others, their laughter, interjections like "really" or "I know," to infer the general sentiment. For example, if someone says something and everyone laughs, even if you miss the exact words, you know it was likely a joke or a light-hearted comment. This is about reading the room through your ears. Another layer is colloquial language and idioms. These are expressions that don't mean what they literally say. Phrases like "hit the ground running," "piece of cake," or "break a leg" are common in native speech. When you hear an unfamiliar idiom, don't get stuck on the individual words. Listen to the context. If someone says, "Don't worry, the presentation will be a piece of cake," the surrounding conversation about an upcoming event tells you it means something is easy. Your brain needs to switch from literal translation to contextual interpretation. To practice this, I recommend watching unscripted talk shows or panel discussions where conversations are spontaneous and messy. Shows like The Late Show or podcasts like The Joe Rogan Experience are goldmines for this kind of practice. Start by watching a short segment with subtitles to get the gist, then watch it again without, focusing on how the participants interact. Pay attention to how they interrupt, agree, or disagree, and how the conversation flows even with interruptions. Here's a practical exercise: the summary method. After listening to a chaotic audio clip for a few minutes, try to summarize the main points out loud in your own words. It doesn't matter if you miss details, the goal is to capture the essence. This trains you to prioritize key information over perfection. For instance, after listening to a group discuss weekend plans, your summary might be, they're deciding between going hiking or seeing a movie, but can't agree on the time. This skill is invaluable in real-world situations where getting the big picture is more important than every single word. Remember, the brain is a pattern-seeking machine. The more you expose it to messy, authentic speech, the better it becomes at filtering out noise and locking onto meaning. In the next part, we'll explore how technology, like transcription apps and speed controllers, can be leveraged to accelerate your progress without overwhelming you. Navigating the chaos of overlapping conversations and slang is one of the most demanding skills, but what if you had a personal trainer to help you build those muscles? That's where technology comes in. In today's world, we have an array of digital tools at our fingertips that can transform your listening practice from a frustrating guessing game into a targeted, efficient workout. I'm not talking about magic bullets, I'm talking about leveraging apps and software to give you the feedback and control you need to accelerate your progress. The key is to use these tools strategically, not as a crutch, but as a scaffold that you gradually remove as your skills improve. One of the most powerful features available in many media players and language apps is variable playback speed. When you're struggling with a fast-paced dialogue, your first instinct might be to slow it down to a crawl. But here's a pro tip: don't start too slow. Instead, try listening at about 75% speed first. This is often slow enough to make the words distinct but still retain the natural rhythm and melody of the speech. Listen to a challenging sentence at this speed until you can decipher it. Then, gradually increase the speed to 100% and even beyond to 110% or 120%. Training your ear at faster speeds makes normal conversation feel manageable, almost slow motion. It's like a runner training with weights. When you take them off, you feel lighter and faster. Another game-changing tool is the use of transcription services. Apps like Otter.ai or even YouTube's auto-generated captions can provide a real-time text version of what you're hearing. But the magic happens in how you use them. Instead of reading along while you listen, which can make your eyes do the work instead of your ears, try this method: listen to a short clip first without any text. Jot down what you think you heard. Then, activate the transcription and compare it to your notes. This immediate feedback is invaluable. It highlights exactly where your listening gaps are, whether you're missing reductions, mishearing words, or struggling with specific accents. This process turns a passive activity into an active investigation. For those who want to take it a step further, there are language learning platforms like LingQ or SpeechLing that are specifically designed for listening practice. They often come with integrated dictionaries, allowing you to click on unknown words for instant definitions, and they provide a library of content tailored to different levels. The beauty of these platforms is that they combine listening with vocabulary building, so you're not just improving your ear but also expanding your lexical resources simultaneously. Remember, listening comprehension isn't just about sounds, it's also about recognizing words quickly, and these tools help bridge that gap. But a word of caution: technology is a servant, not a master. It's easy to become over-reliant on subtitles or slowed-down audio. The ultimate goal is to understand natural speech in real time. So, always cycle between supported practice, with tools, and unsupported practice, without any aids. Challenge yourself to watch a video first without subtitles, then with, then without again. This reinforces your learning and builds confidence. In the next part, we'll delve into the psychological aspect of listening, how to overcome the frustration and anxiety that often accompany advanced practice. It's a hurdle we all face, but with the right mindset, you can clear it with ease. It's inevitable. No matter how many tools you use or how many hours you practice, there will be moments where you hit a wall. A conversation that feels like gibberish, a movie scene that leaves you completely lost, that sinking feeling that after all this effort, you're not getting any better. This frustration, this anxiety, isn't a sign of failure, it's a natural part of the learning journey. In fact, it's a sign that you're pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, which is exactly where growth happens. But if left unchecked, that frustration can become a major obstacle. Today, we're going to talk about the psychology of listening, how to manage your mindset so that these challenges become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. The root of much listening anxiety is what I call the perfection trap. We set an unrealistic expectation for ourselves to understand every single word perfectly the first time we hear it. But even native speakers don't do that. In noisy environments or with unfamiliar accents, they miss things too. The difference is, they don't panic. They rely on context, ask for clarification, or simply let it go and focus on the main idea. Your goal should be to adopt the same strategy. Give yourself permission to not understand everything. Shift your focus from catching 100% of the words to grasping 100% of the meaning. This single change in perspective can dramatically reduce your stress levels. When you feel that wave of frustration rising during a listening exercise, here's a simple technique: pause and breathe. Acknowledge the feeling without judgment. Say to yourself, "This is challenging right now, and that's okay." Then, reset your intention. Instead of trying to decode the entire stream of speech, pick one small thing to focus on. Maybe it's just identifying the subject of the conversation. Or perhaps it's listening for linking between two specific words. By narrowing your focus, you regain a sense of control and achievement. Celebrate the small victories. Did you finally catch that reduced "what are you becoming" wadia in a song? That's a win. Write it down. These micro successes build momentum and confidence over time. Another powerful strategy is to reframe your self-talk. Instead of saying, "I can't understand this," try saying, "My ear is still getting used to this accent," or "This is a new pattern I'm learning to recognize." This language positions the challenge as temporary and surmountable, rather than a fixed limitation. It's also crucial to curate your listening diet. If you're constantly exposing yourself to content that is far too difficult, you'll only feed the frustration. Balance is key. Spend 80% of your time with material that is at or slightly above your current level, where you can understand 70 to 80% of it, and 20% with more challenging content to stretch your abilities. This ensures you're building confidence while still growing. Remember, listening comprehension is not a linear process. You'll have breakthroughs and plateaus. The plateaus are not wasted time, they are periods where your brain is consolidating everything you've learned. Trust the process. In the next part, we'll look at how to create a personalized, long-term listening practice plan that keeps you motivated and moving forward, even on the days when you don't feel like it. Shifting our focus from the mental hurdles to practical action, let's architect a personalized, long-term listening practice plan that transforms your learning from a sporadic activity into a sustainable habit. The biggest mistake I see advanced learners make is having a vague intention like "I should listen more," without a clear structure. Without a plan, it's easy to default to what's comfortable or to let practice slide when life gets busy. A personalized plan acts as your roadmap, ensuring you're consistently moving forward while adapting to your evolving skills and interests. The goal is to create a system that feels less like study and more like an integrated part of your life that you genuinely enjoy. The first step is an honest self-assessment. You need to establish your baseline. Take a piece of paper or open a notes app and answer these questions. What types of audio content can I understand relatively easily? Where do I struggle most? Is it fast-paced dialogues, specific accents, technical jargon, or something else? Be specific. For instance, you might note, I can follow solo podcasts on familiar topics at normal speed, but I get lost in group conversations with British accents. This diagnosis is crucial because it allows you to target your weaknesses effectively. There's no point in spending hours on content that's too easy or too difficult. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. Once you have your assessment, set SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Instead of I want to understand movies better, a SMART goal would be, in the next 3 months, I will be able to watch a 30-minute sitcom episode without subtitles and understand at least 80% of the dialogue. This goal is clear, quantifiable, and has a deadline. Break this down into smaller, weekly objectives. For example, this week, I will watch 2 10-minute scenes from a sitcom, first with subtitles, then without, and transcribe 1 minute of dialogue to check my comprehension. Now, design your weekly practice routine. I recommend a balanced mix of different activities to work on various skills and keep things interesting. Think of it as a workout schedule for your ears. Here's a sample framework you can adapt. Monday, focused practice, 20 minutes. Work on a specific challenge identified in your assessment. If accents are an issue, listen to a short clip from a targeted accent and use the transcription method we discussed. Wednesday, extensive listening, 30 minutes. This is for pleasure and immersion. Listen to a full podcast episode or audiobook on a topic you love, without stopping or stressing about comprehension. The goal is exposure and building stamina. Friday, active application, 20 minutes. Engage with interactive content. Join an English conversation group online, record yourself summarizing a news article, or use a language exchange app to have a real conversation. Sunday, review and reflect, 10 minutes. Look back at your week. What was easy? What was hard? Adjust your plan for the next week based on your insights. Variety is the spice of learning. Curate a playlist of resources that cater to your goals and interests. Include podcasts at different speeds, YouTube channels with diverse presenters, audiobooks, news reports, and even music lyrics. The more diverse your input, the more adaptable your listening skills become. Use technology wisely, schedule your practice sessions in your calendar as non-negotiable appointments, and use apps to track your streak. This creates a sense of commitment and accomplishment. Finally, remember that a plan is a guide, not a prison. Regularly reassess your progress, perhaps every month. Are you getting closer to your SMART goal? If not, don't be afraid to tweak your approach. The plan should serve you, not the other way around. In the next part, we'll explore how to leverage your improved listening skills to enhance other areas of your English, like speaking and pronunciation, creating a powerful feedback loop for overall fluency. Now that you have a solid plan to sharpen your listening skills, let's explore how this heightened auditory awareness can become your greatest asset for improving your speaking and pronunciation. It might seem counterintuitive, but the path to speaking more fluently and clearly begins not with your mouth, but with your ears. Think of your brain as a sophisticated pattern recognition machine. The more accurately and frequently you feed it the correct sounds, rhythms, and intonations of English, the better it can instruct your vocal apparatus to reproduce them. This creates a powerful feedback loop where improved listening directly fuels improved speaking. You'll start to self-correct naturally, because for the first time, you'll actually hear the difference between how you sound and how native speakers sound. The most effective bridge between listening and speaking is a technique we touched on earlier, shadowing. But now, we're going to take it to a deeper level. Instead of just repeating words, we're going to focus on mirroring the music of the language. This means paying attention to the pitch, the stress, the pauses, and the emotion. Find a short audio clip from a speaker you admire. It could be a podcast host, a news reporter, or an actor. Listen to a single sentence several times until you feel the rhythm. Then, try to speak along with them, matching their timing and tone as precisely as possible. It's not about the words alone, it's about becoming an echo of their speech melody. This feels awkward at first, but it's incredibly effective for building muscle memory for intonation and rhythm. Another critical aspect is vowel and consonant accuracy. Many pronunciation errors persist because we've never learned to hear the subtle differences. For example, the difference between the vowel in ship and sheep, eversacy, can be elusive. But with your trained ear, you can start to discern these nuances. Practice by listening to minimal pairs, words that differ by only one sound. There are plenty of videos and apps dedicated to this. Listen carefully, then record yourself saying the words. Compare your recording to the native speaker. This side-by-side comparison is often a revelation, highlighting gaps you never knew existed. But perhaps the most transformative practice is learning to transcribe your own speech. Record yourself speaking for a minute or two about a simple topic, like what you did yesterday. Then, listen back to the recording and try to transcribe it exactly as you hear it. Not as you intended to say it, but as you actually said it. You will likely discover reductions, hesitations, and pronunciation quirks that you were unaware of. This self-awareness is the first step toward change. When you hear yourself say gonna instead of going to, or when you notice you're not pronouncing the final consonant in words, you can consciously work on those areas. This process turns you into your own teacher. You're no longer relying solely on external correction, you're developing an internal monitor. The goal is to reach a point where you can hear a mistake as you're making it, or better yet, feel it before you speak. This is what native speakers do instinctively. They have a keen sense of what sounds right because they've been immersed in the sound system their whole lives. You are building that same system through deliberate practice. In our next segment, we'll discuss how to find speaking opportunities that are low pressure and high reward, so you can apply these skills in real-time interactions without fear. But understanding the theory and practicing in isolation is only half the battle. The real test comes when you need to apply these skills in real-time conversations. For many advanced learners, this is the most daunting step. The fear of making mistakes, of not being understood, or of freezing up can be paralyzing. I've been there myself. The key is to shift your mindset from performance to connection. You're not giving a speech, you're having a conversation. The goal isn't perfection, it's communication. And the best way to build confidence is to seek out low-pressure, high-reward speaking opportunities where the focus is on interaction rather than evaluation. So, where can you find these opportunities? Let's start with digital spaces. Language exchange apps like Tandem, HelloTalk, or Speaky are fantastic because everyone is there for the same reason, to practice. You can text or have voice calls with native speakers who are often learning your language, creating a mutual support system. The beauty of these platforms is that you can start at your own pace. Begin with text chats to build rapport, then move to short voice messages. When you feel ready, schedule a voice or video call. Remember, you're not obligated to talk for hours. Even a 15-minute conversation once a week can work wonders. The low stakes reduce anxiety, and you'll quickly learn that most people are generous and patient when they know you're learning. Another excellent strategy is to join online communities centered around your hobbies or interests. Whether you're into photography, coding, gaming, or book clubs, there are countless Discord servers, Facebook groups, or forums where people discuss these topics in English. When you're passionate about the subject, you're less focused on your language and more on the content. This natural engagement makes speaking flow more easily. For example, if you're in a gaming community, you might join a voice channel during a game. The conversation is often informal and repetitive, which is perfect for practicing common phrases and reactions without pressure. But what about in-person opportunities? If you live in a city, look for meetup groups for language learners or international communities. Many cities have conversation cafes or language exchange events in coffee shops. These are designed to be casual and friendly. If you're nervous, go with a simple goal, to introduce yourself and ask one question. You'll often find that once you break the ice, the conversation carries itself. If in-person events aren't an option, even practicing with yourself can be beneficial. Talk to yourself in English while cooking, driving, or showering. Describe what you're doing, articulate your thoughts, or even debate with yourself on a topic. It sounds silly, but it builds fluency and reduces the mental barrier of speaking aloud. When you're in a conversation, leverage your listening skills actively. Instead of worrying about what to say next, focus intently on what the other person is saying. This does two things. It gives you more time to formulate a response, and it ensures your response is relevant, which makes the interaction more natural. Use filler phrases like "that's interesting" or "let me think about that for a second" to buy time without silence feeling awkward. Remember, hesitation is normal in any conversation. The more you practice, the more you'll develop a sense of flow, where listening and speaking become a seamless dance. In the next part, we'll look at how to handle misunderstandings and communication breakdowns gracefully, a skill that turns potential embarrassments into opportunities for learning. Even with the best preparation and the most attentive listening, misunderstandings and communication breakdowns are an inevitable part of conversing in any language, including your own. The true mark of an advanced speaker isn't the absence of breakdowns, but the ability to navigate them with grace and confidence. In fact, how you handle these moments can often leave a more positive impression than flawless speech. The fear of making a mistake can be so paralyzing that it prevents us from speaking at all, but I want to reframe that fear. See these moments not as failures, but as opportunities to deepen the conversation and your understanding. The goal is to develop a toolkit of strategies that allow you to repair the conversation smoothly, without derailing the flow or your confidence. Let's start with the most common scenario: you simply didn't catch what someone said. Perhaps they spoke too quickly, used an unfamiliar word, or there was background noise. Instead of panicking and nodding along, which only leads to confusion later, it's perfectly acceptable to ask for clarification. The key is in how you ask. A blunt "what?" can sound abrupt. Instead, use polite, standard phrases that signal your engagement. For example, sorry, I missed that. Could you repeat it, please? Or could you say that one more time? Another effective tactic is to acknowledge the specific issue. I didn't quite catch the last word you used, or you're speaking a bit fast for me. Could you slow down slightly? This specificity helps the other person adjust their speech to your needs without feeling criticized. But what if you heard the words, but the meaning isn't clear? This is where paraphrasing becomes your superpower. After the person has finished their thought, you can interject with a summarizing question. For instance, so, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're suggesting that we postpone the meeting until next week? This serves two purposes. It confirms your comprehension, and if you've misunderstood, it gives the speaker a chance to correct you gently. It shows that you are actively listening and care about getting it right. This technique is invaluable in professional settings but works equally well in social conversations. Now, imagine you're in the middle of speaking and you realize you've made a mistake, or you can't find the right word. The worst thing you can do is freeze. Instead, have a few phrases ready to keep the conversation moving. You can say, "What's the word I'm looking for?" or "I'm having a mental block," often with a light laugh. This honesty is usually met with empathy and help. If you misuse a word and realize it, you can correct yourself. "Sorry, I mean schedule, not calendar." This demonstrates linguistic awareness and a commitment to accuracy. Let's visualize a quick example. You're in a meeting and a colleague says, "We need to leverage our synergies to optimize the Q4 rollout." You might not know leverage or synergies in this context. Instead of staying silent, you could say, "I want to make sure I'm on the same page." When you say leverage our synergies, are you talking about combining our team's strengths for the next project? This opens the door for clarification without exposing a lack of vocabulary. Remember, every native speaker has experienced these moments. Handling them calmly and effectively turns a potential awkwardness into a demonstration of your communication skills. It builds trust and shows that you're a proactive participant in the dialogue. In the next part, we'll explore how cultural nuances influence communication and how to listen for the unspoken rules that govern conversations beyond the words themselves. But navigating misunderstandings isn't just about clarifying words, it's about deciphering the cultural code that underpins every conversation. Words are the surface level, but culture is the deep current that carries the true meaning. If you've ever understood every word someone said but still felt like you missed the point, perhaps the humor fell flat, or a suggestion felt oddly aggressive, you've encountered a cultural nuance. For advanced listeners, becoming culturally literate is just as important as understanding connected speech. It's about learning to hear what isn't being said directly. Today, we're going to explore how to tune your ears to the cultural frequencies that shape English communication, turning you from someone who understands the language into someone who understands the people. One of the most significant cultural divides in communication styles is directness versus indirectness. In many English-speaking cultures, like the United States and Australia, communication tends to be quite direct. People often say what they mean plainly, and value clarity and efficiency. However, in cultures like the UK or Ireland, communication can be more indirect. Politeness and avoiding offense might lead someone to soften a request or a criticism. For example, a British person might say, "I might suggest we consider a different approach," when what they really mean is, "This approach isn't working, we need to change it." The key is to listen for modal verbs like might, could, or perhaps, and phrases like "I was wondering" or "it might be an idea," which often signal a polite but firm suggestion. If you listen only for the literal words, you might miss the urgency or the critical feedback embedded in the politeness. Humor and sarcasm are other minefields. Sarcasm, in particular, relies on a mismatch between the words said and the tone used. For example, if someone says, "Oh, great job," with a flat or exaggerated tone after a mistake, they mean the opposite. Your ear must become attuned to the tonal shifts that indicate irony. This is where consuming native media like sitcoms, panel shows, or comedy podcasts becomes invaluable. They are training grounds for understanding the rhythm and delivery of humor. Pay attention to the audience laughter. It often cues you into the cultural context of what's funny. Similarly, self-deprecating humor is common in many English-speaking cultures. When someone makes a joke about themselves, it's often a way to build rapport, not a sign of low self-esteem. Listening for the light-hearted tone and the context helps you respond appropriately. Politeness norms also vary widely. In American English, "How are you?" is often a ritual greeting, expecting a brief "good, thanks," rather than a detailed account of your well-being. But in other contexts, it might be a genuine question. Listening to the speaker's intonation and the situation will tell you which it is. Also, pay attention to how people express disagreement. In some cultures, direct disagreement is acceptable, while in others, it might be prefaced with phrases like "I see your point, but," or "That's an interesting perspective, however." These softeners are crucial for maintaining harmony and are a key part of active listening. So, how do you practice this? First, diversify your listening diet intentionally. Don't just listen to one type of English. Watch British dramas, American news, Australian podcasts, and Canadian vlogs. Notice the differences in how people interact, make requests, and express opinions. Second, when you're in a conversation, listen holistically. Don't just focus on the words, absorb the tone, the pace, and the emotional undertones. Ask yourself, what is the relationship between the speakers? What is the setting? What is the goal of the conversation? This contextual listening will help you interpret the cultural subtext. Finally, when in doubt, observe and ask. If a response seems confusing, it's okay to say, "I want to make sure I understand the context here," which shows cultural sensitivity. Remember, mastering these nuances is a journey, but each conversation makes you more adept at hearing the music behind the words. And so we arrive at the final piece of the puzzle. We've journeyed through the mechanics of connected speech, the melody of accents, the strategies for real-time conversation, and the subtle dance of cultural nuance. But all of this knowledge converges on a single, powerful truth: advanced listening is not a technical skill, it is an act of empathy. It's about leaning in, not just with your ears, but with your entire being, to truly connect with another person's thoughts and intentions. When you listen at this level, you move beyond being a student of the language and become a participant in the human experience it conveys. This journey never truly ends. There will always be a new accent to decipher, a new slang term to learn, a new cultural reference to unravel. And that is the beauty of it. It means your English will never grow stagnant, it will continue to evolve and deepen for the rest of your life. The goal was never perfection. The goal was always freedom, the freedom to enjoy a film without subtitles, to get the punchline of a joke, to build a genuine connection with someone from the other side of the world without a linguistic barrier standing between you. You now hold the master key. You understand that when sounds disappear or change, it's not a problem to be solved, but a pattern to be recognized. You know that the rhythm of a sentence often carries more meaning than the dictionary definition of each word. You are equipped to navigate misunderstandings with confidence and to listen for the cultural currents flowing beneath the surface of a conversation. These are not just language skills, they are life skills. Your mission now is to continue curating your own learning. Let your curiosity be your guide. Follow it down rabbit holes of podcasts about obscure hobbies, watch documentaries narrated in unfamiliar accents, strike up conversations with people who have different stories to tell. Every single interaction is practice. Every moment you spend engaged with the language is a deposit in your fluency bank. Thank you for dedicating this time to honing your craft. It has been a privilege to guide you through these layers. Remember, the most important thing you can do is to keep listening. Listen widely, listen actively, and listen with an open heart. The world is speaking. You are now ready to understand it. Keep going.